Top 10 player cards from Heirs of Numenor and Against the Shadow. The Lord of the Rings card game, the Heirs of Numenor Deluxe Box, and the following Against the Shadow expansion cycle was the third cycle of the original run of the Lord of the Rings card game. Cards from Heirs of Numenor and Against the Shadow have been released in the Defenders of Gondor starter deck. Not all the cards have been revived, so we will revive them. First with some honorable mentions. Quickly mention a couple fun cards that definitely weren't in the top 10. Encounter an Aemon Dean's Small Target is a fun card. What that card does is it tries to set up a scene where you use your hobbits to cause one of your enemies to attack another enemy. I've never pulled this off, but that was a cool idea. The Palantir. This card from Assault on Osgiliath, what you do is you get a peek at the encounter deck for one resource. You name an encounter card type. For all the cards that match that type, you get to draw cards, and for all the cards that don't, you raise your threat. It's one of those gambling things, kind of like the Doomed player card type that you'll see in the following cycle. So some fun cards there. Ranger Spikes. This is my favorite trap card. Now it's tough to make trap decks work. It ties up an enemy that comes out of the encounter deck, drops his threat by 2, and stops him from engaging with you. So it's kind of just hanging out there, kind of hobbled. Don't even have to worry about it, especially if his threat number is at 2 or less to begin with. This allows cards like Faramir to be stronger. Hero Faramir from this cycle gets a boost for all the cards hanging out in the staging area. So it kind of goes along with trap decks, and Ranger Spikes is a fun way to do that. Just the idea of that image on the card, just being like that guy's just sitting out there while everyone else is deciding what to do and doesn't have to pay any mind to him because he can't attack you anyway. I think that's kind of funny. Aether Swordsman is also an honorable mention, as Outlands is going to be a major part of this list. That's an archetype that was very controversial at the time. It was a deck that you could kind of buy with like one expansion. It was a little bit overly simplistic and very powerful at the same time. All the Outlands cards would go together, but the Aether Swordsman is the one Outlands card you could say that could be fine on its own, where the more Aether Swordsman you get, the stronger willpower score is going to be. 3 of these guys, and get willpower, come on, what is that, 4 each? It's the one Outlands card that I've seen in non-Outlands decks, so it gets an honorable mention for that. But now let's get into the top 10. Number 10 is Boromir. Boromir is one of the hero cards from Heirs of Numenor. Boromir is also the cover boy for the Defenders of Gondor starter deck. Easy breezy, beautiful cover boy. Boromir gives all Gondor characters +1 attack, provided he has at least 1 resource on him. And given on the number of resource generating cards you have for Gondor and leadership cards in general, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Boromir also goes great with Visionary Leadership, which came out in the Morgul Vale at the end of the Against the Shadow cycle, which gives all Gondor characters +1 willpower, provided you also have that 1 resource. So Boromir is a strong card, and he can set the strategy for your deck, so you can kind of build around it. The reason why Boromir is not higher: 1, a lot of the cards here are just a little bit better. 2, that 1 resource restriction early in the game can be a bit of a problem, believe it or not. It's usually not going to be a problem, but I've run out of resources on Boromir before. Kind of a frustrating decision to decide whether or not to spend that last resource on Boromir on a card that you need and get it into play, or whether to wait and get that bonus for 1 extra turn. Also, if Boromir had the boost of Visionary Leadership instead of the boost that he gets in his card, as in a willpower boost instead of an attack boost, would have been arguably up there with Dying Ironfoot as one of the strongest heroes in the game. The stronger boost, you need the card to attach to him. So that's why he's number 10. Still a great card. Number 9, Behind Strong Walls. Behind Strong Walls is made stronger because you had strong walls, so to speak, with a lot of the Heirs of Numenor cards and the Against the Shadow cards. Behind Strong Walls allowed you to ready a defender and give him +1 defense. If you have strong defenders to begin with, the card can be of great use. It also works well with Denethor from the core set. Number 8, the White Tower Watchman. Originally in the Druidon Forest expansion. The White Tower Watchman is designed to go along with Monosphere decks, although it's a neutral card, so it can go with any Monosphere deck. If you have all 3 heroes of the same sphere, the White Tower Watchman can take undefended attacks, which is a big thing. So normally in Lord of the Rings card game, if you don't defend an enemy attack, a hero has to take the undefended attack. In fact, the White Tower Watchman can do this. It's like a doubly strong chump block. Plus, the White Tower Watchman can also be a good source of hit points. I've used White Tower Watchman a lot when dealing with archery cards. And White Tower Watchman can go well with Outlands decks because you have the Amphalos Herdsman. With a combination of the Amphalos Herdsman and the Sword of Morthon, the Sword of Morthon can turn the White Tower Watchman into an Outlands ally, and the Amphalos Herdsman can then add hit points to Outlands allies. So you got a huge sponge for damage for archery cards, which are also a bit of a problem. Archery is one of the more challenging keywords you have to face, and I always liked using White Tower Watchman with at least 3 base hit moves to deal with that. Mainly because of how much I would use White Tower Watchman in my style of play to number 8 in this cycle. Number 7, Strength of Arms. Not all the Monosphere cards in this cycle were good cards. What you saw a lot of in Heirs of Numenor and Against the Shadow were Gondor cards, Monosphere cards, which is obviously just giving you boasts for having all 3 heroes in the same sphere, and Outlands. The Monosphere archetype was probably the weakest of the 3 that got built out here, but Strength of Arms is part of the reason why Leadership, Monosphere Leadership, was the strongest of the Monosphere decks. That it being Monosphere Leadership being much stronger than Monosphere Tactics, Spirit, or Lore. If all 3 of your heroes are leadership heroes, ready every ally in play for only 2 resources. And this is really good. And part of the reason why leadership is so good for Monosphere is because there are certain synergies, such as Outlands next, which we'll get into a bit, because we're about to get into the Outlands cards, and those cards get really powerful. A lot of these cards are better in combinations with others, so when I'm trying to rank them how strong they are by themselves. So if a card is really dependent on other cards to be powerful, I'm less likely to put it highly on my list. But Strength of Arms, because it fits both into Monosphere Leadership, non-Outlands, but also just makes Outlands really powerful. It's a great card. Number 7. Number 6, Theoden. At the end of the Against the Shadow cycle, after dealing with all these Gondor cards, all of a sudden you get a bunch of Rohan cards at the end, which is kind of thematic. Theoden is the key to being able to play Monosphere Tactics. If you tried to play Monosphere half decks out of the core set,
you're gonna have a bad time.
Probably found that Tactics was impossible to play. There was no willpower to be found besides Gimli and Legolas. None of the allies had any willpower. If you have Theoden out there, though, Theoden gives +1 willpower to all Tactics heroes, and he's a pretty strong hero in his own right. 12 threat, he's a little bit pricey, but Theoden is really strong, and by virtue of unlocking Tactics as more than just a pure support sphere, Theoden is number 6. It's also one of my favorite characters from the movies. I liked Rohan because Rohan's a bunch of normal guys. I know not everyone loved Bernard Hill's portrayal of Theoden.
What can men do against such reckless hate?
But I loved it. I thought it was great. It had been a while that the game was out too before you got a Theoden card. Plus you got Aemir shortly after this, so your Rohan decks could really start taking off here. Because remember, up until this point, your Rohan decks, you had Eowyn, but you had Theodred, Daenerys. I don't know if you got any other Rohan heroes up until Theoden. Then you got Theoden and Aemir. And it's all right, now we got the Rohan decks going. So Theoden is number 6. Number 5, the Defender of Ramas, or Defender of Ramas. Defender of Ramas. I think Ramas sounds a little more gravitas behind that. The Defender of Ramas sticks out when you first look at him and say, what's up? This ally has 4 defense? That's ridiculous. Yeah, it is. And it's ridiculous when you just include him with the core set. It's even more ridiculous when you consider they came out in Heirs of Numenor. Heirs of Numenor unveiled siege quest types and battle quest types, where instead of questing with willpower, which was by far the most important trait in the game up to this point, you can instead go questing with defense in siege quests or with your attack in battle quests. You have a siege quest, Defender of Ramas, 4 defense. And unlike the Winged Guardian from the first cycle, from the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle, actually stays in play as long as he's alive. And with 4 defense, it's pretty reasonable to be able to survive attacks. And in behind strong walls, where you can reuse your Defender of Ramas to defend twice for a defense of 5 each time, Defender of Ramas is a great card. It's also a candidate for some of the stronger attachments, like the Spear of the Citadel, which basically can turn your Defender of Ramas into a super Gondorian Spearman. The Defender of Ramas is number 5. Number 4, Herluin the Fair. Herluin the Fair was the Outlands hero in the Steward Sphere.
Outlander! We have your woman!
Famously, what the game was doing here with the Steward Sphere was giving you an entire deck archetype in a box. So what Outland decks do is you have a bunch of cards that stack onto each other. The Aether Swordsman, the more of them you get, the better all Outlands characters' willpower is. You have the Knights of the Swan. The Swam?
The Swami.
The Knights of the Swan, the more of those you get, the stronger your Outlands attack is across the board. The Warrior of Lossarnach, the Amphalos Herdsman, they all do the same thing. But Herluin the Fair is the key to them. Herluin is weak to begin with, but Herluin is able to other characters in play. I'm going to have to get my 5-year-old in play soon and pick him up from preschool. Herluin the Fair is able to buy Outlands characters from any sphere, which is already good. You can't play Outlands without Herluin the Fair. Some people would want to put Herluin lower because they don't like Outlands, but I think it's inarguable that Outlands is very strong. So Herluin the Fair, by unlocking all of Outlands, is great. Herluin also is a great attachment for Lord of Morthond, where when you play Outlands characters from non-leadership spheres, if you have a mono leadership deck, which, like I said, is a very common thing, you can also get a card draw when you play an ally. It's crazy the kind of synergies you get. Almost game-breakingly strong. Heirloom the Fair is number 4. The reason why Heirloom the Fair, despite being game-breakingly strong, is not higher is partially because number 3 is Forlong. Forlong from the Druidon Forest is the strongest of the Outlands allies. Forlong not only gets a bonus for all the Outlands cards in play, but Forlong, if you get a wide variety of Outlands characters, so one from each sphere, you can ready Forlong at the beginning of each phase in the round. So Forlong becomes by himself a super strong but readyable, re-readyable ally. The guy's nuts. Actually, a fully powered up Forlong is the strongest ally I think you can have in the game, and that's even probably stronger than Gandalf because Forlong stays in play, has what is it, like 4/4/4 for stats, readies himself continuously. It's ridiculous. Yeah, this is why people had problems with Outlands. Forlong is easily number 3 on pure strength. This costs only 3. Come on. Probably should have been like 5. Number 2, Caldara from the Blood of Gondor. Yeah, that's right. Caldara is number 2. I'm saying that because most people may expect Caldara to be number 1. Caldara is a very strong hero because Caldara can leave play, basically discard herself, and bring in 2 allies if you have mono spirit. And this might not sound amazing, but there are some very strong spirit allies. When Caldara first came out, you're talking about like Northern Trackers coming into play. But if you had Prince Imrahil the ally, you can get, say, a Northern Tracker and Prince Imrahil, who becomes a hero in play, which is actually stronger as a hero than Caldara. Then if you're running Spirit, you probably have cards that can bring Caldara back into play. You have Fortune and Fate. So now you're Caldara's back, and you basically got Prince Imrahil and Northern Tracker. That's why Caldara is so strong. Caldara had to be errata because Caldara was originally a card you could use her ability more than once. Caldara, even though using only once, is number 2. And finally, from the Heirs of Numenor, Baragond. Baragond is the best defender in the game. 4 defense, trust me, that talk about 4 defense being strong. Baragond can also get attachments in play for free. You can get the ultimate Baragond setup. Get Spear the Citadel and the Gondorian Shield. Those cards I almost put on the list to begin with, but you get them for free on Baragond. Baragond goes up to 6 defense with Gondorian Shield, and with Spirit of the Citadel does the damage to everyone that he defends against. Plus, with Behind Strong Walls, he can defend twice in a turn for 7. It's absurd. All right, I spent too long recording that video, so I gotta go pick up my son from preschool. If you want to see a video where I talk about parenting as a board gamer, I got a video for that, linked on screen. If you like this video and you want to see more videos like this, remember to subscribe to Jackson Warfield. I'll see you in the next video.